Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Well, yeah, listeners, here we go. We back, and my Pasha is back. I've missed him the last couple episodes, but he's been busy coaching and traveling and doing his thing. And if you're new, Mike and I played college basketball, University of San Francisco, and we both have been I guess we'll just say high school coaches. And I actually thought I was done, and I'm helping coach a team. So we're always talking hoop and doing our thing. And I know our guest, Susan, is a big hooper and very excited. Before we got on the air, she said, "Hey, sometimes you guys go off on tangents." I said, let's just go off right now, right out of the gate. Because it's a big game day. Mike is playing his rival, where they are just going to take it to him tonight.
All right.
Let's get into the show. If you are new, this show is part of a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is called C4 Leaders. And we're the only nonprofit to utilize the pizza making process to create space for our companions to be seen, heard, and loved. We also write children's books, obviously host a show, and then use the most amazing handmade, hand-tossed sourdough pasta. That's what I'm talking about, pizza, to bring out the best in each other. So if you're interested in checking us out in that space, go to pizzadays.org, and it's with the Y to support our work. So we are season 4, episode 4, Susan Murphy, coming from Charlotte, North Carolina, where it is a little bit cold, but not too bad. And I guarantee in our introduction, we say we hope to inform, inspire, and transform. I'm putting all my money on Susan. She is definitely going to do that for us today. And the best place to find her is through her website, and it's Susan Murphy, and then VOSOT.com. And it's MURPHY. So Susan Murphy, VOSOT.com. And just in case you're wondering, VOSOT is voice over sound on tape. We're already dropping it like that. Susan is very proud of me. I can see that look in her eyes. I'm like, all right, Jeff, you doing it. All right. So about our guest, working with young minds, hearts, and voices is Susan's passion and life's work. Spending more than 40 years on air, in production, and as a college professor, Susan decided to share her wisdom and create VOSOT, Coaching for Broadcasters. Susan guides young broadcasters to find their voice, resulting in personal fulfillment and lifting their careers to new heights. Susan considers it an honor to share what she has learned as a voice actor, traffic reporter, live host, radio personality, and news director. Susan is grateful for the opportunity to help others achieve similar professional success and career satisfaction. Susan, thanks for sharing your many gifts and for helping countless individuals share theirs as well. Welcome to the show.
It is lovely to be here because I love the title of this show, Life's Essential Ingredients. Like, we all have them, and maybe some overlap. But essential, when you really drill it down, it makes you think about what's so terribly essential in your life. Like for me, it's my dog.
Well, all right, let's get into the dog before we even get into the start of the day. What kind of dog and why is the dog essential in your life?
Okay. Well, Cashmere is a pit bull German Shepherd mix.
Wow.
And adopted in 2012. About 2 years old then, or so we were told. And she has just been a really wonderful companion to me. My husband died in 2014. And so the dog has just become my best friend, the reason to get up. She's fun. She is delightful. She sits and listens to my bad days and my good days. And I just couldn't live without the dog. And then second on that list is my 2.5-year-old granddaughter.
What a great way to start the show. And definitely, I think the key ingredient in life, I'll just speak for myself though, is love, and I listen to you talking about your dog, Cashmere, and your granddaughter, and the relationship that you had with your husband. And yeah, definitely love just comes through. And it's interesting that you start the show with your dog. And our second book that the nonprofit wrote is called Lucy's Secret Sauce. And Lucy was my second boxer. So I'm a big dog guy. Mike has a couple of dogs, and it's incredible what dogs can do for us, and how they just give unconditional love and are the best listeners. Oh yeah, pets are incredible.
It was who rescued whom when it comes to Kashmir. No two ways about it.
What a great way. Doesn't have anything to do with our thought of the day, I don't think. Okay. We're getting into it.
Do you have time to change the thought of a day to throw a dog in there by any chance?
Good. I'm pretty good like that. I'm pretty good with quotes, but this one I want to get out because, yeah, I don't even want to say why I picked it for you. I want you to interpret that. But okay. Here we go, listeners. We're going with our thought of the day, and it's from Theodore Roosevelt, and it's a long one. The credit belongs to the person who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, and spends themselves in a worthy cause, who at best, if they win, know the thrill of high achievement, and if they fail, at least fails daringly, greatly, so that their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Why would I pick that for you?
Wow. What immediately jumped into my head was that if you are the center of attention in any kind of sport or activity in an arena, you didn't get there by yourself. You got there, sure, it's your own self-growth, your own determination, your own desire. But people get to the center ring because they have allowed other people to coach them, help them, critique them, make them better, stronger. And I think that's kind of what I do. I'm just the voice coach working with the anchors and the reporters, and I can show them all kinds of wisdom. I can give them all kinds of tips and tricks, and then they go back into the arena, the same arena that they came from before they started working with me. But then when they get back there, I'd like to think their fight, their efforts are stronger. And if things don't go as well, I'm there to console, and I'm there to help, and I'm there to lift you back up. And if things go really well, I am the first person to applaud.
I love it. I love it. I know Pasha's enjoying those sentiments as well. So I think we hit the thought of the day. We dunked on them, Pasha. We'll just use some basketball right now. But let's get in. I always love starting, and Susan, you take this any which way you want. But what was life like growing up?
What was life like growing up? I had two parents who were very, very into their work. My dad worked for many pharmaceutical companies and was very smart and diligent, and he was all about his job, which many men in the 60s and 70s, that's what they did. My mother, I think she was born at the wrong time. She and I could have switched places. She should have been born in the 50s instead of the 30s, because she went back to school to become a social worker. And literally the minute my youngest sister turned 5 and she could get her into kindergarten, my mom went to school, finished up some coursework, went off to become a social worker, eventually went back to school, got a master's degree. So I had two parents who were very focused on their own lives, their own professional lives. So my sisters and I were latchkey kids. My sisters and I, we did a lot of stuff on our own. We weren't a super, super tight-knit, let's sit down and have dinner every night. My dad usually came home too late. We weren't that kind of a family. We were certainly not that Leave It to Beaver kind of thing, nor the Cosby Show. So my sisters and I did a lot of our own growing up on our own. We just raised ourselves to some degree. I mean, mom and dad provided, don't get me wrong. We had a summer home in the Pocono Mountains, and my grandparents looked after us a lot because my parents were so busy. I don't ever remember growing up my dad taking a week's vacation, ever, ever. So my grandparents were very influential in my life because my parents were busy.
Mm. Such a different time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even those, it's tricky. We definitely won't get into some parent challenges that come when you coach at the high school level, but it is a different time where people are working, but at the same time, with, I think, the influence of technology, they're so involved in their kid's life one way or another, whether it's email or text or picking up the phone and calling the kids, checking, quite often, where, you a few years ago out kind of on your own and your parents doing their thing. And you just, it is what it is because time just happens and stands for no person. And, but interesting, I often think of how, I don't know, I love watching the old shows, and my wife, we just started watching Lawmen. I'm going blank on the rest of the title. Bass Reeves is the title of the show, and it takes place right after the Civil War, so 1861, 1865, and you just look at the chaos and how hard life was at that time, especially for African Americans, and you just look at how blessed we are, not to get too political, but just to grow up at this time and the resources that we have, and how it allows you to, the show is called Life's Essential Ingredients, and how blessed we are to kind of pick and choose the ingredients that we want, in our life, where if we were to just been born at a different time, those choices are very limited and maybe even non-existent. For so many parts of the people in our country. But I don't want to get too far off topic. But I know you mentioned that you are a fairly new grandmother.
Yes.
And I could see that brings so much joy. And
oh my gosh, yes.
if you do look in on our YouTube site, you can see Susan's eyes just sparkle. But what do you love? Let me ask this: What do you feel the difference is between your role as a mother and then now your role as a grandmother?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. My parents weren't really interested in their grandchildren. My daughter. In fact, the rule was you couldn't stay over at Nan and Bo. They didn't want to be called Grammy and Granddad. Oh, God forbid. Nan and Bo. You couldn't stay over at Nan and Bo's house until you were 6. They really didn't want anything to do with babies and that kind of thing. So once you turn 6, my parents would kind of get involved in their grandchildren's lives far more than they ever did in our lives. And I get that. And that's just, as you pointed out, the way it is. So what I am trying to do for my own granddaughter, who, by the way, and I did not see this coming, they named my granddaughter, her last name is Ferguson, and her first name is Murphy. Murphy Ferguson, Murphy B. Ferguson. So, oh my goodness, I have a granddaughter named for me. And now I live in more or less the same city as she does. And I want to be for her the way my grandmother was for me. It's like the generation skip as to who pays attention to whom. I want to be there and play and get down and dirty and get imaginative and let's go to the science museum and let's have a tea party and no, let's stack up all the bears and we'll see how high we can make them. I want to be involved in every part of her life. I want to go to her concerts and her dance recitals or her soccer games and whatever it is she does. I want to be there to cheer her on. And I always want her to know, when the going gets tough, the tough go to grandma's.
I love that. I'm going to ask the dumbest question that there is. So obviously you grew up with such a different, I don't know the best word to use, but things were just different for you. So why Why do you want to make it different? What is that resonates inside you, that resides inside you to be, I want something different?
Because of the nonstop, unconditional love that grandparents can give to grandchildren. So that goes back to practically your first words when this conversation started. I mean, it's all about the love and how you can show it and what you can do and how you can be there. And it goes both ways. You know, what an older person can do for a younger person and vice versa. You know, I've always thought child care centers and assisted living facilities should be right on top of each other because there is so much, I think, a grandparent can give to a younger child, including patience, including time, including a little bit of wisdom, that my daughter and her husband, bless them, they're both attorneys. They're super busy, but you know, they're better about spending time with Murphy. But they're busy and they high powered jobs and all kinds of things. So hello, I'm right here. And that's what I want to be for little Murphy B.
Yeah. And how fortunate everybody is, like you were saying, you know, you to be able to share your wisdom, expertise, and unconditional love, and for your daughter and son-in-law to know that they have family of someone who is going to give Murphy unconditional love and the guidance that they need to have her reach her true potential. Yep. That's just beautiful.
And it's an honor. I waited a long time to be a grandmother. You know, my mother became a grandmother when my sister had her first child, and my mother was 49. My mother was appalled that at 49 she had to call herself a grandmother. Well, I didn't get to call me a grandmother till I turned 65. So bring it on. Just bring it on.
I love it. So good segue into the title of the show. And we've talked about love already, but so obviously, and you look amazing. I can tell you take really good care of yourself, and you have great energy. And I know you're coaching all these people, and the show is called Life's Essential Ingredients. So how do you do that? You know, if there's a listener, and specifically, you know, any age, it doesn't matter. But if there's a listener, it's like, man, I would love to be a little bit more focused and maybe get a little better routine so I can have good energy, you know, kind of throughout the day. What is your routine? What are those essential ingredients that are in your life on the daily that allow you to be there for your granddaughter, to be the coach, to be there for your daughter and everything else that you do?
The first word that popped into my head was appreciation. Great appreciation for my health, great appreciation for my ability now to focus on the things that really only I want to focus on, as opposed to how we all, in various stages of life, you have to focus on other things. So now I can do like this coaching, which I really consider to be my life's calling. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. The other thing is, so the gratitude and the humility that comes with having been a broadcaster my entire life. Lots of people say they want to get into the broadcast industry, and no college is going to tell you what the percentages are of, you know, people you train, and then do they go on and work in the industry. But when I was teaching at college, and just my own anecdotal evidence, roughly anywhere between 18 and say 22, 23% of the people who go into the broadcast industry actually stay or make it in the broadcast industry. Between 18 and 23. I never took for granted for 1 minute that I wasn't lucky and or talented, but lucky enough to continue my work in an industry I love. There we go. That 4-letter word again. I love what I do. So I've been very fortunate to say I've always done this. And most people with my degree and my background don't say that. They go off and they do public relations, or they find another career, or something else pulls them away from the industry. And that did not have to happen to me. So maybe that's where I get, you know, the energy from, is because honestly, Jeff and Mike, I am always doing something I love. I spend very little time doing things I find like drudgery. I'm lucky that way.
I guess that'll be my next question. So do you have to say no to things, and how do you do that? And I think, the power of no sounds so simple, but I think we all like to feel needed and wanted. And sometimes we extend ourselves a little bit too far to get that feeling. And it sounds like you've mastered, whether those are the right words or not, the power of no, but knowing what is worthy of your energy and wisdom, and then being able to say, no, thank you. And that's a skill that I think is not taught at all. And I don't know if you're following exactly where I'm trying to lead you.
I'm not sure, because as soon as you said the power of no, my brain said, no, 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 it's the power of yes. It's saying yes to as many things as I possibly can so that I can experience all kinds of different things. When I was first widowed, I was only 57. And my mother, my dad passed away in 2001, she had said to me, Susan, try never to say no to an invitation, when people want to, give the widow something to do. And I took that to heart, and I pretty much said yes to every invitation, even if it wasn't my cup of tea, or from a person who wasn't my cup of tea, I would just say yes. So I think all my life, I have always tried to say yes when it seems like a good idea. I've had I used to say I've had more reinventions than Madonna in terms of what my career has looked like. So for me, it's so much not the power of no, but the power of yes and making it work. That makes sense? Did that take you where you wanted to take me, or no?
My Pasha looks a little stumped on it. You want to say something on that one, Pasha?
No, I love the positivity. I love that. Absolutely.
You just have to be. You can choose an awful lot in your life. Widowed at 57, I'm going to choose happiness. Get let go from a job, I'm going to choose happiness. I lived in New York for 27 years, came down to Charlotte the year after my husband died. Leaving all my friends, my support system, leaving Team Susan back in New York to come to Charlotte, I'm going to choose happiness. You have to choose it.
I like.
Maybe it's not, okay, so you take a job that might not have been your first choice, but okay, let me see where this is going to take me. Let me see how I can work this into something better, something different, whatever. You choose happiness. And you can always, I've been a freelancer most of my life. I've worked full time for various people at times, sure. But I loved being a freelancer. You come and go, and they're always happy to see you. And, oh, Susan, come back. We want to have you again, blah, blah, blah. And you never have to get involved in office politics. You never get swept up in gossip. Freelancing, if you can swing it, it's awesome. And that's where you can say no. Oh, I'm busy that week. No, I'm honored to be able to say, oh, I can't because I have X.
Yeah. All right, let's get in. So you are a communications expert in helping people learn how to use their voice.
Yes.
And I want to get into a little different, not spin on it, but let's just have you share your wisdom on the power of listening.
The power of listening.
Yeah, just talk on that for a little bit.
Most of us, we all have that power, but a lot of us don't use it because we're so intent on making it about us. And hey, I've been guilty of that. I'm a really big interrupter. Like sometimes, Jeff, I have to let you finish the sentence because I want to, nope, go ahead. Because I am paying attention. I want to get in on the conversation, where sometimes you just really have to listen and let the other person finish because maybe they were going somewhere else. So don't jump so quickly into a conversation, or don't don't stop the soliloquy. There may be a good reason for this. And what better proving ground would that be except in a marriage or a relationship or even the relationship with your children? Learning to better listen to them. And then when you do get your chance to talk, mirror what they said, acknowledge the feeling that came with it. I think if more of us listened carefully to all the people in our lives, we would be far less likely to say things we regret. We'd be far less likely to yell or to jump to conclusions because we don't listen. And it's a skill that takes practice. You have to focus in on what that person is saying and don't let your mind wander or don't, but I have a question, but I have a question. That's me. So I've learned over the years how really important listening is. And as a broadcaster and as an interviewer, well, sure, listening is the most important thing you can do while talking to someone in an interview situation, because you might have come in with a whole list of questions to ask. But as they talk, sometimes far better topics or ideas or questions can come up. And if you're hell-bent on doing your list of questions, you could miss the best stuff.
Yeah. And then you're not listening at all because you're just focused, like you're saying, on what you're going to say. Then how much, when you're working with people and say someone that wants to get in and be an interviewer in whatever space they want to work, but how much or how do you teach the people that you coach to listen and watch body language and tone and other parts of speech that kind of tell the story, but without even really speaking?
I have a really good friend at Houston Public Media who is the best interviewer I've ever met in my entire life. He and I worked together on some public television specials years back, and I recently had the chance to interview him because I wanted to, Ernie, what are some of your secrets to great interviewing? And the first thing he said was, well, actually he said two things. One is be prepared, do your homework. And which is so easy now that with Google, back in my day coming up, it was harder to research people, but it was also then easier to ask the simple questions because you couldn't always find those answers. But now that we have Google, how do you get past the obvious and how do you start a conversation that really gets to the heart of who a person is? So be prepared, do as much research as you can. And the second thing Ernie always stressed right up there is respect. Show that person respect. Doing the research is step one to that. But as you are talking, remember, you're not the star here. Your interview is the star. And a lot of people have trouble with that. It's not about you. It's about your interview and what that person is saying to your audience in terms of enlightening or entertaining or taking behind the scenes or telling a story they haven't told before. So that preparedness and the respect you show the person you're interviewing, Ernie says, sets you up for success 9 times out of 10.
Great tips. Great tips. And I don't know how, I'm going to shake it up a little bit. And I know this might not be exactly your space, but I know you'll know how to answer it. And I don't know how old your granddaughter is, but let's just take like maybe an 8th grade student who you have a parent that comes to you and just says, man, my child is just struggling with communication and listening and just feel like I want them to get better at it. What tips would you give for, and I'm not trying to sound bad, but just helping someone achieve verbal fluency, and it's such a skill, but it's something that's not really taught, anywhere. And definitely not in junior high or high school. Maybe college, you might take a communication, but probably not. How do you help people learn how to be a little bit, and I'm doing a terrible job today, but a little bit more articulate with their words, and have verbal fluency to be able to kind of communicate what is it that they want to share?
First of all, you're taking me right to your book.
Mm.
And because I know that's near and dear to your heart, you're taking me right to your book. It has to start at home. And the first thing you need to do is model it for your own kids. At the dinner table, we all know that when they're in the backseat of the car and you're driving them to soccer practice, boy, you can learn a lot in those conversations. So model it for your children in that you are interested in what they're saying. If you can get them to open up, it should be taught in a very early part of junior high school when kids are starting to become adolescents. But now with video games and their cell phones, all they do is text and they watch video or that. So the art of conversation and the art of listening to understand, as opposed to listening to butt in and just ask another question, is quickly becoming lost. Who sits down at the family dinner table anymore? Isn't that part of your program to have families sit at the dinner table where you put your phones away and, hey, let's have a conversation? And there are families I know where you go around and you have to ask certain questions and you are required to answer. Well, what was the worst thing that happened to you today? What was the best thing that happened to you today? That needs to be cultivated really early on. Attention spans are just so short. How do you get children to listen to teachers in 8 periods of school when they're 14? It's really hard for most of them. It wasn't easy when we did it either, but it's way harder now because of the distractions, constant distractions. So the more you can model good conversation and good listening skills with your own kids, you can't be with them all day. You don't want to become, as you had earlier talked about, a helicopter parent. You can't do it for them. They have to learn how to do it themselves. It's hard.
I love it. Such a great, just that model it is just powerful. It just, Mike has several kids. I have 2, and it just really takes you back a step. Like, whoa, I need to be a role model, because where else are my kids? And just like you said, teachers are amazing and they're doing a great job, but they have a lot going on. And where is my child getting that ability to learn how to listen and communicate? Well, it has to come from me as a parent. And yeah, I won't get into part of the challenge that we're trying to encourage people to do as far as eating meals together. But I love it. Again, listeners, we're on with Susan Murphy. Again, her website, Susan Murphy, VOSOT.com. And Susan, if you have somebody that's listening, and again, listeners, thanks for tuning in. We're listened to in 44 countries and 660 something cities. And there's someone that's like, man, I need Susan's help. Kind of get into your process of like your methodology. I know you've been a professor at Hofstra, and you've just, had an amazing career. Kind of what makes you a little bit different, and what is your methodology?
When I was coming up, it's not like we got a whole lot of voice help in college. Now there's really no voice help in college, but we went to radio news or radio stations, on air people, whatever, first, and then you go to television. Well, that doesn't happen anymore because so few radio stations, A, have newscasts, or B, they use, 5 or 6 people to voice track the songs or the genre that they're playing. And so working in radio has become harder. So when you go straight to television and you learn how to write a story, in college, all they care about is the technology. Yeah, you can use cameras and editing programs, and I get all that. But if you can't deliver it with a voice that is authentic, authoritative, pleasant, understandable the first time around, why would I continue to watch you? I wouldn't. And that's why I hung out my shingle. When I got to Charlotte and I'd be flipping around channels on different newscasts, and I was hearing voices that just didn't do the rest of their work justice. So long story short, I had a news director friend send me two of his people. I sent them back better trained. He was thrilled, didn't pay me, but gave me a great recommendation, and it stumbled through from there. So what I do is I show men and women, but particularly women, where their authentic pitch comes from. And it comes from the bottom of your diaphragm. So what I do is I reconnect you to how to breathe efficiently. We, as babies, breathe into our bellies, and when we sleep, we breathe into our bellies. But once we turn 2 and 3 and we're walking, talking, and following somebody else's, commands, we do what's called either clavicular or conversational breathing. It's short, it's quick, it does get air to your diaphragm, but not efficiently. Muscles are tense, our pitches are high, and high pitched, or in men, it's not so much a high pitch, but what I call it's a sort of strained, or you're reaching with your voice. That can be just like I'm doing now. This is hard to listen to in an entire news piece or whatever, when really all you have to do is watch, drop your shoulders, and breathe into your belly. You drop your shoulders to let go of tension from your shoulders to your neck to your jaw to your face. You breathe into your belly, which prepares you then. You literally can picture it in your mind's eye as the air and energy goes in and you go to speak. You start with a belly full of air. You bring it up in what is going to be, no doubt, a lower, bolder, more rounded, more pleasant, more authentic pitch. A lot of young women don't let go of girlish, breathy, small voices for many reasons. Some of them are kind of sad. Your parents didn't care what you had to say, so shut up and sit down. Or they were bullied as children, or their brothers and sisters were the stars, and they were kind of pushed to a corner. And so nobody cared what they said. So those girlish voices just sort of got them through whatever dysfunction was part of their life. So they can get into the broadcast industry, or, I have worked with ministers and nurses and CFOs. For women, they don't know where their authentic voice is, nor have they heard it because they don't know where it is. So I have been honored to be on journeys with young women where I can show them truly what their real voice sounds like. And it surprises them, and their eyes fill with tears, and they think they have discovered something they've always had. I don't create it. It's always been there. I just help you find it. For some women, it's actually life-changing. One of the nurses I worked with, life-changing. One of the, not a correspondent, she was a reporter in Philadelphia, life-changing. And yes, you paid me, but the psychological income is priceless. Mm. A lot of people don't know they have a voice there.
Well, I had a question that was going to go in a different direction, but I don't even want to ask it now. But
go ahead. No.
I've got another question, though. When you show women their voice and they're so emotional and moved by it, do you find that they go on and teach that same thing to other women so they can get the same emotional fulfillment out of it?
I suspect so. I don't always know so. I was working with a minister, a woman of color, who, in divinity school or wherever, they teach you how to write a sermon. They don't usually teach you how to deliver it. So I was working with her, and we were working in finding the well-rounded voice that comes from the bottom of the diaphragm. And so when she would practice a few lines of a sermon or whatever, and she could hear it back in her own ears. I remember one time during our session, she stopped and her eyes filled with tears, but it was because, oh no, I realized This has been a generational problem for women in my family. And you know what? I have a daughter. I think she's 6. I'm going to make sure she knows how to find her real voice, that she is not going to fall back on some girlish, small, non-distinct voice because that was easier, or that was expected, or that was what just happened. And she realized she couldn't let it go on for one more generation. There you go. Did I ever think as a broadcast coach I would be doing something like this? No, but it's about 15% of the women I work with. Easy 15%.
I'm still trying to, I follow exactly, I guess, just this authentic, it's just incredible kind of what you're sharing, and it makes so much sense. But when you think authentic voice, in my head, I'm thinking more authenticity of my being. And I know you're speaking the same language, and I get exactly what you're saying, but I'm just kind of talking out loud. I should probably be quiet, but it's like when you help your clients kind of own the power of their breath, that power of their breath allows them to tap into their heart and soul, and perhaps for the first time share their true self. And that's when you're talking about this authenticity, and I think it's so powerful. And I was getting goosebumps when you were talking, because, and not that I know anything about being a reporter or anything like that, but I would just imagine the more you know who you are, the better job you can do as a listener. And then the better job you can then do as a storyteller for allowing what needs to come out in its most authentic way.
You hit it exactly right. Yes, because I firmly believe that confidence in any arena of your life can easily bloom when, as you just said, you take control of the breath. You are standing in your own agency. You are using your authentic voice, tapping into your smarts, tapping into your heart. I had a voice teacher, singing teacher, actually, a couple of years ago, who said, you know what, Susan, I don't think we live in our brains, or we don't live in our hearts. We live in our gut, which is where your diaphragm, it's not a mistake that's where your diaphragm's in your gut. And the expression, my gut told me not to do that. Have to trust my gut with that decision. That is where we live. And when that is under control by you, and in breath work, and I teach what yogis discovered 2,000 years ago, that in rhythmic breathing, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which lowers your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, and allows you to focus. From there, that's confidence grows.
I love it. Let's do a little example here. Mike has his rival game tonight. The gym is going to be packed. You're not going to be able to hear if he was yelling at me and I'm standing right next to him, there's going to be that many people, that much excitement. It is going to be jumping over there. So how could Mike help his athletes kind of get into that space to tap into their parasympathetic so they can go out and not let their emotions kind of get the better of them, but also slow things down and realize they have the power. So walk Mike through a little, he loves it when we do this stuff, a little breathing exercise or something to help him be able to tap into his athletes for tonight. Let's go, Pasho. Let's go, baby.
All right. Here's the deal. You're in the locker room, and that's about as a quiet as a place as you're going to have, either before the game and then again at halftime. So what you're going to do is I want you to sit on the benches with the players, so have them sit. And I want you to look each one in the eye, and I want you to drop your shoulders. And even if that drops your body, I'm okay with that, because we're getting down to essence. Drop your body, drop your shoulders, make eye contact. And you're going to say to them, I'm going to teach you a little bit of rhythmic breathing. And as you say this to them, I want you to have practiced it a little bit before. I want you to take a breath, and the boys, you'll say, breath in on 4. Count to 4, take the breath in, and exhale it, counting to 6. Bring it in on 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out on 6, 5, 6. Do it even 3 times, and you've started the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you can get them to, and you breathe with them, they're all breathing together, 4 and 6, 4 and 6, 4 and 6. And here is where you start the pep talk or the reminders or what you need to tell them. Because not only does that rhythmic breathing activate parasympathetic nervous system, it's also going to focus you and change the pace of what you're about to tell them. And they're nervous and they're excited, which is why they have to drop the shoulders, relax those muscles. And you'll do it in a pace that they can easily follow. Don't go a mile a minute. Take a breath, recharge the air, and they'll, if you can get them breathing and then down with you while you're talking with them, you have a much better shot at getting it to stick. And do it again at halftime. 4 and 6, 4 and 6. It will focus them right back. Who cares what happened in the first half? We're all right. We're going to look to the second half now.
Wow. Is there any way to get you to come down here for the pep talk? That's awesome.
Yep, I can be there, right? It'd be about a 5-hour flight. I can be there.
All right. All right.
I was thinking the same thing. Oh, that was great. Pasha, ready tonight.
I can't wait to try that tonight. That's going to be great.
Absolutely. 3 times. All you need to do, I have everybody practice it several times a day for 1 minute, which means you do it 6 times. But if you can even do it 3 times.
3 times.
Yep.
In on 4, out on 6.
6. It has to be you can pick any rhythm. I do 4 and 6. I mean, 4 and 6. Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's keep going with, we'll just stick with the basketball theme, but we're applying it to what you do, Susan. And so many times, the quote talked about the critic. So many times we're our own worst critic. Mm-hmm. And it is tough. This show, we don't really edit it, but it's kind of sort of not really live, I guess. And so I could imagine being on TV, having thousands, if not, hundreds of thousands of people watch what we're doing, and you stutter, say the wrong thing. How do you help people not to be their own worst critic? And then at the same time, own kind of their shortcoming, and then use that as a way to get better.
Mm-hmm. Sure. The first thing I teach them is when you're a reporter or an anchor and you make a mistake, trip over a word or whatever, you think you have fallen into the Grand Canyon. I assure you, a viewer does not think you fell into the Grand Canyon, and I can give you a little exercise to prove it. Next time you're out in your car, you're driving home or to someplace, and I want you to notice a car coming towards you. Pick a car. Note the color of the car and note some characteristics of the driver. Oh, she has blonde hair. She's wearing sunglasses. She's in a gray Subaru. I want you to go 2 more traffic lights and then try to recall that car. You won't, because it goes to a part of your brain that does not hold memory longer than a goldfish. So that's exactly what happens when an audience, a viewer watches an anchor trip. Yeah, you tripped, but I couldn't even tell you did it 10 minutes later. So I always assure them you did not fall into the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. However, if you do it 3 times in a row, well, then maybe it really does feel like you fell into the Grand Canyon. I don't know. So my fix for that is when you do that, you automatically think, okay, well, I'll hurry up and I'll just get to the end of this story. And that's the last thing you should do. Take a beat, drop your shoulders, let go, take a little air. And I never say to a reporter, go slower, be slower. News directors do that. Just slow down. No, that doesn't help. I say, be more deliberate and intentional in what you're now talking about. that changes the pace and it makes you focus a little bit more on the connection to the copy and then therefore the connection to your audience. So I think on a basketball court, let's say I know you drill the fellas on all kinds of basics. And let's say that's like falling apart at the edges. You want them to go back to the basics. Hey, okay, got it. Everybody take a breath. Intentional and deliberate, remember the drills, remember the basics, remember what we've rehearsed, remember what I make you do 102 times. And you don't do it quickly, you do it intentionally and deliberately. That brings a little bit more confidence back, and then you too will have forgotten you fell into the Grand Canyon. Well, maybe.
Even have this. I just love everything that you're sharing. And I don't have any question on this, but I don't know why it's coming up to me to ask you about it. But just the importance of teamwork, in what you do, coaching people, but more so on the end of someone that is having to deliver, in front of people. And I guess the strength in numbers, maybe perhaps giving them more courage, or I don't know the exact question, but maybe just expanding on teamwork.
A basketball team or the producers and directors and air people that put on the 6 o'clock news, it's all the same thing. You build on each other's strengths. The person who runs the teleprompter can wreck an entire show. A director, if they get really off track, can wreck an entire show. A point guard who just can't seem to pull it together can really wreck the plays that you've rehearsed. So when you realize you're not alone in this, you lean on the other people on the team who can help right this ship is really what you need to do. When you're a speaker and you're out on a podium and it's just you and the technology fails, well, then you can make a joke about it. Or my favorite is, that screen system is just like my teenager. It doesn't always listen to me either. You just kind of have to work around it, and we're human, and things go wrong and things happen, and none of us is perfect, and perfection is way overrated. So sure, but tomorrow's another day. There's another game. There's another broadcast. You can't make it a habit because then there's something wrong with the team. You're missing some pieces, but you're a team and run in and help where you can. It happens a lot in television. You can't get through a Super Bowl or an Academy Awards show if you didn't have all 95 people, 20 of whom are on cameras and 15 of whom are producers in the back row. They all have to help. Everybody.
And listeners, if you want to join Susan's team, make sure you find her just via her website, Susan Murphy, VOSOT, VOSOT.com. And man, it's been a great episode. I got 3 pages of notes, and I think we're in a pretty good time. I'm going to ask you one last question, then I'll just open it up to you if there's anything else that you want to share with the listeners before we end this episode. But there's a quote that I love from John Alston, and you're a young woman who's done some amazing things, and I can see you got a whole bunch of more years of living left to you. But we're going to fast forward, 30 years or so, and you're on your deathbed now. And you're getting ready to take your last breath. And the quote is this: the only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. So you are surrounded by all the people that have been instrumental in your life, and getting ready to take that last breath. What is it that you want them to feel as you're getting ready to go home?
That I was kind. That I made a little difference. That I made some situations better, that I could be helpful and kind. I think I would want to be remembered as kind. When I'm your coach, I have to be very clear, and sometimes I get a little strident or a little harsh. in working and in getting you to work to what I know is your level of competency. But I love all my clients and I'm there to applaud and I am your cheerleader. And Murphy B, I would hope you will remember wonderful times that we had together, whether it was just going out for a slice of pizza or when, I helped you memorize a song for the high school show. I always want to be remembered as somebody who was kind in how I interacted in your life.
That's beautiful. Pasho, get us out.
Wow, Susan, thank you so much. Your knowledge.
This has been so fun. I've never had an interview like this. This is so fun.
We had a blast. Thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, any last statement that you want to make?
In terms of voice, I just want everybody to understand that don't let anyone tear you down or don't be your own worst critic when it comes to hearing your own voice. There are a lot of ways. There are YouTube channels. There's me. There are books, whatever. Getting to your authentic self, which lives in your gut, right at your diaphragm. If you start to use that, so many things in your life will change. I've seen it more than 100 times. But even if you don't have the most beautiful voice, but you have something to say it, please.
And with that, listeners, boom, baby, that just happened. We out.